Hey, Liberty Munbalance, and today we're going to be heading over to Final Fantasy XIV, and I'm going to be going over my experiences as a new player joining in 2020. Today I'll be highlighting several things that I wish I knew earlier through my adventure, and sharing them all with you. Hopefully this video will make your experience a little less overwhelming. Obviously, starting out with purchasing, this is something that I found myself a little bit confused about at first. Essentially, there's 3 tiers of purchasing. The free trial, which covers you up to level 35, and unlike previously, is no longer time limited. Then you've got the standard edition that goes up to level 50, and then you also have expansion content, which goes up to level 80. Technically, 14 has 3 different expansions: Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, and the latest, Shadowbringers. You only need to purchase the latest expansion, however, and all the previous ones are added. And as such, this is actually a larger purchase than the base game. Finally, the complete edition, which just includes everything, but I just wanted to clear up, when I started, I originally thought that I had to buy each of the expansions separately, which kind of scared me away initially. Obviously, once you've downloaded the game, the character creation comes next, and there's definitely some things I want to clear up here. Characters in the game have an in-game birthday, and you also get to pick a deity. These barely matter at all. The same with the small amount of stat differences between races. The game has progressed to the point where these are basically irrelevant. Just pick what you think looks best. You will get a chance to change this later on. After the base game's main story, you'll get a Fantasia potion, which allows you to completely change the attributes of your character. And with that out of the way, I would also like to discuss how they average players out across a ton of servers. Servers have 3 statuses: standard, preferred, and congested. I had no idea about this, and I just sort of stumbled into a preferred server by accident. Congested servers are straight up off limits for joining, but if you join instead a preferred server, you'll get the Road to 70, which essentially doubles all of your EXP gain and is a final modifier, so it's really good. You'll also get 10 silver chocobo feathers, which you can trade in for some of the level milestone gear that's available at 50, 60, and 70. If you get a character to level 30, you'll also get 15 days of playtime and 1,000,000 gil, but unlike the previous incentives, there's a lot of restrictions for these, and my free playtime didn't end up working. But even without that, the double EXP is honestly good enough of a reward on its own, especially if you want to level multiple classes. The next thing that I wanted to mention is that it's very possible in the early game that you'll have end game players in your dungeon. FF XIV has something called daily roulettes, which incentivizes even top players to jump back and do lower end content. This ensures that there's always players to queue with whenever you're doing a story-related instance, or duties as they're called here. It also gives the endgame player a wider variety of content to do and still gain progress. If you're intimidated by the thought of pro players judging you, new players get a little sprout icon to let others know that they're new, and the community is generally very friendly to new players joining in. Players are also given extra awards if somebody is doing the content for the first time, so there really shouldn't be too much of an issue if you're not the fastest tank or the deepest deeps. You can actually check if someone is new by right-clicking on them and viewing their search data. You can see what levels they actually are. And on that note, I think it goes without saying that in standard duty queues, your character is scaled down within the power level of the dungeon. So you're not going to have a full-powered max-level player just sweeping the dungeon for you. Another thing that I found out the hard way is that both the main quest and your job quests are extremely important. Main quests unlock many things, including dungeons, as well as access to more of the world. Job quests unlock certain skills, can supply you with gear, and are required to advance your class into its final form. For example, at level 30, gladiators get a job quest which allows them to become a paladin, but only if they've done their previous job quests. And the top left corner of the screen, provided you're not in a dungeon, will give you easy access to both your current main scenario quest, as well as your job quest just beneath it. And then we've got the market. Few things to mention here. A lot of people like to scam a guy, and it's not super obvious, but if something is sold by an NPC, it will actually say so on the item itself. What many awful peeps try to do is to sell the outfit that you start with based on your race, which is totally buyable from an NPC and way cheaper. But on the other note, there's also high quality items. These are glowy items with a little swishy thing on the end, and they're completely better than the same item of a regular quality. These are usually given through quests or crafted from other players, so look out for these when you're picking up an armor set. Now that being said, most of the time, especially in the early game, you can get by with whatever the NPC is selling. And the last thing that I felt I needed to mention was the Deep Dungeon. This is a really neat type of dungeon that doesn't function like a normal dungeon, and it's great for a few reasons. The queue isn't limited to standard compositions, so DPS won't have to fear the unending queue times, and it has a completely independent leveling system. In the first Deep Dungeon, you can level up to 60, and it's a heck of a lot faster than leveling up to 60 outside the dungeon. This allows you to test out a new class at a decent level to see if you like it without investing a huge amount of time leveling it. You also get a nice bonus of EXP after you're done, so it's a decent way to level as well, especially if you've already done all your daily stuff. A quick note that free trial players and the base game players are locked into 35 and 50 respectively. This restriction isn't applied here, but instead, the dungeon finishes at floor 10 for free trial players and floor 40 for base game players, making it unlikely that you'd ever break the cap anyway. That's the big things anyway, or at least all that I could fit into this first initial video, as I'm still kind of getting my feet wet in the Final Fantasy environment, as you will. If you've got any more tips that you think a new player ought to know, then you could always leave them in the comments below, and I'd really appreciate it. Like the video if you liked it, sub to see more like it, and a special thanks to the Patreons for their support in making the channel sponsorship free. In exchange, they get perks like seeing videos a day early, and some of them even get their name up on the screen. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.